of the Pleasant Valley Recreation Park District for May 6, 2020 is hereby called to order. Mary, would you please lead us in the pledge? All rise. Hand over heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Karen, please call the roll.
Director Kelly,
here.
Director Malloy,
Here.
Director Mishler,
Here.
Director Dixon,
Here.
Chair Magner.
Here. Okay, amendments to the agenda? There are none. Can I get a motion to accept the agenda?
So made.
Second.
Karen? Director Mishler?
Aye.
Director Malloy,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Dixon,
Aye.
Chair Magner.
Aye. Public comments. In accordance with Government Code Section 54954.3, the board reserves this time to hear from the public. If you'd like to make comments about a matter within the board's subject matter jurisdiction, but not specifically on this agenda, in accordance with California law, the board will listen, note the comments, and may bring the comments back up at a later date as an agendized item for discussion. Speakers will be allowed 3 minutes to address the board. Okay. I have something to read. It's addressed to the Board of Directors. It's to me as the chairperson. Please read during comments to the public. It's from the Las Posas Trails Committee dated May 4th, 2020. Las Posas Equestrian Park and Trails System. Dear Board of Directors, we would like to thank your long-term planning committee for giving our representatives the opportunity to present the petitions from 250 families surrounding and using the equestrian park and trails. We are hoping that all 5 directors will, at a later date, read the 6 pages of comments of the importance of this park and trails to our community as noted in the survey, indicating 98% of those responding wish to keep the park as it is. Due to the COVID-19 preventing the public from attending the board meetings, our committee watched the April 1st meeting on TV and were happy to hear Director Malloy indicate the willingness of the district to work with our community to secure the trail systems in a more permanent manner than the 30-year lawsuit settlement provided. Mr. Malloy stated he wanted this to be done right, and we agree with him. 2 points Director Malloy made in his verbal report May 1st needs to be clarified. The first, contrary to what he said, very few horses are trailered in to use the arena and trails, as the majority of equestrians ride on the trails from 4 different directions to arrive at the park, thus avoiding the streets. The second statement made, we had a discussion with them, the Trails Committee, and they understand that the trail system really doesn't exist there, but the neighborhood doesn't understand that. The neighborhood thinks there is something that you can go use when, in fact, there is no legal access to a lot of those spots, and we only have literally a quarter mile of path. That is not correct. Our committee understands the legal settlement of 1992 signed by the Superior Court judge gave the equestrians legal access to the trails, and the Park District owns portions, has license and easements to other portions equaling 1/4 of a mile, which is most used path to the arena. Since the equestrian park has an annual budget of just $7,500, it is reasonable to ask the Park District to exercise the option for any for an additional 5 years up to the year 2028. Requests the recommendation of the Long-Term Planning Committee will opt for this 5-year extension, allowing the community time to secure the legal work necessary to arrive at a permanent solution. This park is a gateway to the trails that are used by hundreds of walkers and riders who enjoy the hiking trails. Respectfully, Las Posas Trails Committee and 250 families who signed the petition, signed by Nora Ryan and Audra Seldine. Are there any other public comments? Okay. We will move on. The consent agenda. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Karen, please.
Director Malloy,
Aye.
Director Dixon,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Mishler,
Aye.
Chair Magner.
Aye. Okay. Number 7, new items, discussion and action. Consideration and approval of updated job descriptions and salary changes. Catherine?
Trying to read the rules here, sorry. Okay. Good evening, Chair Magner and members of the board. Tonight, we are recommending that the board approve the updates to 3 of the job descriptions and accompanying salary schedule. As most of you are aware, the Personnel Committee has been meeting every 2 months, and yearly we discuss our job descriptions and any updates that need to be made to job descriptions. This year, we're bringing you 3 job descriptions, and this one has a very minor change. The first position is Recreation Supervisor. All we're adding is the wording that it may work with a Pleasant Valley Recreation and Park Foundation. Currently, in none of our job descriptions outside of the admin analyst specifically refer to the foundation, and we just wanted to make sure that there was a position in recreation that would work with the foundation, since a lot of that stuff is done mutually. The second one we have changed is the development analyst. So currently we have 3 allocations for administrative analysts with the district. With Megan leaving, we have decided to update this job description a little bit more to go along the lines of working with the foundation, focusing on raising funds and organizing events and marketing, and managing district grants. The salary for this position is the same as our administrative analyst, and it has all of the other duties that the administrative analyst has, but just more of a focus on the foundation portion, as well as the raising funds, and that will be for the whole district. Finally, we have the aquatic specialist. The aquatic specialist will be just like our recreation specialist positions, except that it's going to have a lot more direction towards the aquatic center / pool. There are no plans at the moment to add this position to the upcoming budget, but we'd like to have this job description available, as well as the salary schedule available if we do need to look at this in a future date. This is just something that we are kind of looking at long term. So currently, there's no fiscal impact with this. Like I said, the recreation supervisor is just a very minor change. The development analyst will just replace one of the allocations for our administrative analysts. And we are not currently looking at filling a position for the aquatic specialist. So again, we recommend that the board approve the changes to the proposed job descriptions and the adjusted salary schedule that includes those positions.
Mike, do you have any questions?
Maybe someone from the Personnel Committee can talk about this first, and I'll ask my questions. Do
Okay.
you want to add anything before we go into this?
No.
Okay.
No, it's my understanding that the aquatic position is just to be, it's really not even a space holder, it's just going to be on paper, and then if we want to use it, then it would have to come back to the board for money and for us to then get, and to fund it and things. So, does that answer a question for you?
Well, that's
The other ones are, and let me just say about the, the development analyst. In these times, that position's going to be working for the district exclusively because the foundation is not doing anything. So we've pretty much, put everything on hold. So, yeah.
I guess yes, thank you. I do have some questions. And my first question is, let's talk about the development analyst position. It's essentially the same pay, right? It's the same pay, so we're not doing anything different there. Why not just expand the current analyst information to include what you have here? And then what you're doing, you're basically taking a large description and dividing it in half. You're subsetting it into two things where I'm just trying to think through this, where you can take both those descriptions and squish them together and have a larger unit and still have two people. Because the pay and responsibility is about the same. So I don't understand why not just take those two descriptions that the current analyst and then the new one, and squish them together, and you just have then Mary, the general manager can say, well, you're doing this part of this subset, and you're doing this subset. You see what I'm saying?
Currently, that's what we're doing. But for recruitment purposes and for finding the right candidates for this position, we really need to have a title that the people who are looking for these kind of things can see and they'll hone in on. If we have the word administrative analyst for somebody that we want to do the fundraising and the foundation, the nonprofit, we need words in there that's going to really key in on what they're looking for. So this really has to do with making sure we have something available that gets us the right candidates for this position. We got lucky with Megan because I'm not even sure how she came to us, but she had the experience of that. And after losing her, we realized that we need to really focus on that position and make sure that it's tying up some of those ends that were left loose with just having an admin analyst position. It also, besides the recruitment process of it, I mean, the pay is the same, but I'll just stop with the recruitment process. That's really one of the biggest reasons.
And if we went down this path, and I'm not sure if you or Mary needs to answer this, but if we went down this path and we have these two descriptions, and so we have person A working in one of them and person B over here, if Mary wanted to and talk to the two individuals, could our general manager, to switch these people around? Or that would be a major act of Congress and back to the board or something? Or see, what I'm trying to do is to make sure we don't end up with too many pigeonholes where you can't, as a manager, you have to move people around if someone gets sick and help out, or someone leaves on a short notice and you have to overlap. I don't want to tie hands and get involved with labor disputes or something, or unions and everything else, because, this person's not designed to do. I'm just trying to make sure we don't. I understand what you're saying, but I also want to make sure that if we went down this path, that we're not setting ourselves up for a lot of pain and agony down the road.
I got it. So I think there's two things. One, I think as we're looking at, and we started seeing this a little bit with Megan, and just in development. So when you start to talk about development, you start to talk about actually looking at donors, you start to building relationships, you start doing all of those things. So one of the things that Eric's been working on with his team is actually trying to work with building sponsorships and stuff. What I see this position doing is actually being able to do all those things, so it's not just for the foundation, it actually ends up being for a district-wide. But what we have right now, and here's part of the challenge that we have, is that Megan goes to ask, and I'm just going to use an example, Megan goes to ask somebody at Adolfo Grill for something, and then I have the recreation department that follows and go, hey, I'm going to go ask Adolfo Grill for something. So it makes us look really disjointed. So the idea with this is we're really getting somebody with a background that knows how to, that is looking for funds, that knows how to do sponsorships and to do those specific things. We left it as a development analyst with the focus on the development, the marketing, on that side of it. We've also left some terminology in there with the job description, if we went through the whole thing, that also does analyst work. But I can tell you that probably the strengths of, and that's with any position, you're going to have strengths in one. So if we're getting somebody from a development side, their strengths are going to be on the fundraising side of it. On the analyst side, it's going to probably be more the analytical part of it. So what I think we're trying to do is trying to figure out how we meld that, still leave some of that available, but the focus literally looking at how we can start to kind of take that next step with the fundraising and do those kinds of things, if that answers your question.
Well, I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying, but I'm a little bit nervous in the back of my head where if we go down this path, several years from now, something happens and we got to maybe move some people around or do something. If we're going to run up against a wall or a barrier or something, someone says, well, I can't do that because, it wasn't in my original agreement or something. And I'm just trying, you're saying you're comfortable with that. You don't think that's going to happen? I
don't think so, because I think we have enough language in both. It's the focus on what we're doing with this one. I think the other thing is as we've needed this with personnel and with the board, as we're looking at allocations, we look at this on a yearly basis, and if we need to reallocate or shift, we've been able to do that. So I think this is just one more piece. It's kind of just like the other one with the aquatic specialist. The reason we're bringing, once again, that before, it's just a specialist, but when you're looking at certain skill sets, just like aquatics, you need somebody with Title II, you need somebody that's a lifeguard, you need those specific skill sets. That doesn't mean that they might not be able to transfer someplace else, but I can tell you, look at some of our rec specialists, that doesn't necessarily transfer because of the skills. So that may mean they have to go out and get those other skill sets. I would say somewhat the same thing. So we're still trying to do that, but we still need to make sure that there's some key words and focus in there when we're recruiting to make sure we know what we're recruiting for and how we're going down that road. Does that?
I guess my last question would be, why couldn't you just put those words when you're putting out an advertisement for a job and then highlight those words and just have one master description and then highlight the parts that you're focusing in on the job description when you go out to advertise for it? I'm just trying to think about if
That's what we do already. That is what we do.
But then you wouldn't need to subdivide into two new descriptions. You see what I'm saying?
No, I completely see what you're saying, because we've done that. We've consolidated a lot of our other positions over the last few years. The last 5 years, we've consolidated our recreation leaders. We've consolidated our senior recreation leaders. We've consolidated a lot of our positions. I don't know if you remember, before her and I got here, there was basically 3 classification and salary listings with tons of job descriptions that overlapped one another. We really try to think very hard about what we're doing and why we're doing this. And these 2 positions in particular, because they're such specialized skills that we do need for them, it makes it easier for us to find the right candidates for it and to make sure that we have a candidate that sits in that seat that has that specific skill.
Okay. Again, my background in private industry is I don't see it going down to this much detail.
Yeah.
When I worked at Exxon, they hire hundreds, they have thousands of geologists. Mm-hmm. Every one of them was hired as a geologist. There is no, now, once you're inside the corporation and you're working, there are 17 subdivisions of geology. Sure. But that's after you get inside. But when you're hired and you're trained and you're paid, and you're a geologist, and you're spongeable. They can pick you up out of this one group and move you over here and drop you over there with some training, and you can do that. So I'm more used to the fact that you just, it's more of a broad description versus all the details. But, okay, I'm just asking, thank you.
I really like this. And one of the reasons I like it is because it tells us as a board what we're funding. You know, so for example, we don't have money for the pool specialist, but the descriptions of it are very pool heavy. You know, lifeguarding, ability to rescue people out of the water, ability to scream at the top of your lungs to be heard in a pool environment. I mean, there's a lot of things that are really unique. They're completely different from the development skill set. And, I mean, the only thing's really similar is the pay. But, you know, the skills are really different. And didn't we at one time have an assistant pool manager position?
We still do have a part-time assistant pool manager position. That did not get taken away. That's
Okay.
We still have that on the part-time schedule. This is the full-time, these are the full-time positions that we're talking about right now.
Okay, all right. That's what I thought. But, you know, I like keeping it separated and getting people who are really skilled at that one thing that they do, and with a set of descriptions. And I'd also like to add that your track record of hiring people here is pretty impressive. And my personal track record of hiring people is terrible. So you know, I like this. It makes me more comfortable. I think it gives the board a better idea of what everybody's assignment is and what we're investing in, and I like this separation. So.
I really like the idea of this development analyst position. That's people who, you know, kind of responding to Mike's questions about this, is that from what I've seen in the nonprofit area, the hospitals and that sort of thing, people who are good at developing relationships for donations and that sort of thing, if you get somebody good in that job, they can pay for their own salary in a single donor, and they're extremely valuable if they're talented in that area. But you can't just take someone off the street. I know personally myself, I would be terrible in that position. It's you have to be able to go ask people for money, and you have to ask them for numbers that most people would be embarrassed to ask for, and so I think if we're going to have a foundation, I think that's a good idea to have somebody in that position. I think time will tell. The key is really getting the right person for it, and I think you have to search for the right person. Otherwise, you can't. You know, with Megan, we were lucky that we had somebody who had, you know, some natural talent in that area, but I don't know that you can count on that again just by sheer luck. So.
And I totally agree, because when I was working with them and trying to figure out, Eric's going after money and Megan was going after money, and we'd have a foundation meeting, and somebody'd go, we don't want to go there, and so it just makes it much easier. So, okay, do I have a motion?
Well, let me just ask a
I'm
technical
sorry.
question.
Go right ahead.
Are we also talking about the salary, or is that going to be a second portion? Or is that part of the...
That's part of the whole.
Oh, then I have another question.
Okay,
I'm
that's
sorry.
fine.
I didn't know if we're going
go
to
right ahead.
subdivide them or
No,
not.
go right ahead.
My next question then has to do with, and you provided in our handout the salary. I guess I'm not sure if you have a slide or not.
I don't have a slide on the whole thing, but
But that's okay. But, no, I have the one in my hand.
Okay.
What I don't know is, are there changes? What are the changes in here from before?
So except for the aquatic specialist, I shouldn't say it like that. The development analyst is the same as the administrative analyst. So our intent is to always keep those two positions in line with each other. And the same goes with the aquatic specialist. It's going to stay in line with the recreation specialist position. So there's no changes to those.
But the previous positions that we have that are listed on the chart, none of these things have been...
None of the other ones have changed, no.
Okay, that's basically my question.
We would definitely...
It wasn't clear to me if you're also making slight modifications in pay or something.
We have to bring you the whole form every
Yeah,
time because
okay.
CalPERS requires.
Thank you. I just want to clarify that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and that's I'm glad you brought that up, because we have to do that annually, don't we, to post on the website? And
Yeah.
we have to vote on that, and then we say, as of this date,
Yeah,
this is the salary for
We
everybody.
usually will bring that to you like, in July
In
with
July,
the minimum
yeah.
wage, with the minimum wage increases.
Right. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay, can I get a motion, please?
Oh, did Bob want to ask any questions?
Oh, Bob, did you have any questions?
No, I didn't. This was all covered in committee. I support this 100%. No questions.
Yeah, I'm sorry I went over you because I knew you were sitting with me in that committee, so, and
Yeah,
I
no
appreciate that. So, okay. Do we have a motion? Director Kelly, you want to make the motion?
Sure, so made.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Mishler,
Aye.
Director Malloy,
Aye.
Director Dixon,
Aye.
Chair Magner.
Aye. Thank you, Director Kelly.
No problem.
Okay. The next one is financing options for the new marquee at the community center. Is it Jessica?
Good evening, Chair Magner and Board of Directors. So, we are returning to discuss financing as well as advertising options for the new marquee at the community center. Summary, as you're aware, $50,000 was included in the fiscal year 1920 capital improvement budget for a new digital marquee and monument signage at the community center. It will include the district name, the current logo, as well as landscaping improvements. So at our April 1st, 2020 board meeting, provided further direction of looking at financing options considering our current financial landscape within the country due to the pandemic. So Daktronics and Custom Signs, they were chosen as the preferred vendors for the sign, and we have been working with them to get information since. The new sign, as you know, is we chose a 10 millimeter RGB resolution, and it will, at this point, still be at 7 feet 11 inches tall and 7 feet 6 inches wide. District marketing staff will be responsible for content creation, message updating, and advertisement coordination. Excuse me. And tonight we're bringing you the options of advertising and financing. So, staff solicited 3 bids from 3 different sources regarding financing. We talked with TCF Equipment Finance, which they are out of TCF Bank, and they are the financing arm for Daktronics Incorporated. Government Capital Corporation, or GCC, they are the same company that we used to finance the Springbrook financial software 5 years ago, so we have used them before. They are based out of Southlake, Texas. And then we also spoke with the CSDA, their Tax Revenue Anticipation Notes program. So unfortunately, overall interest rates are not as low as we had hoped. We'll go into our first option of TCF Equipment Finance. As you see, we went and did 2 options of 3 annual payments or 5 annual payments. The interest rate of 4.19% provided a difference of, it would be an additional, if we did 3 years, of $1,691.27, and then 5 years would be an additional $3,425.05. And their quote is good for 30 days. The second option, Government Capital Corporation, we went back to them. We initially did 3 years and 4 years, but we went back to have an apples-to-apples look. So we've got 3 years and 5-year annual payments, same as TCF. And their interest rate for the 3 years is 4.659%, and for the 5 years, 4.741%. So you see the difference of additional $35.25 and $56.17 if we did the financing option. Their quote is only good for 14 days, so it may change fairly quickly, but that's as far out as they would go. The third option that we looked at, as I mentioned, was CSDA's trans program. So basically, we searched out, I spoke with some folks in their office, and it's not really a very good option. It would move the expenditures into the next budget year. The program is mainly created as a way to help districts that need extra funding for expenditures within this next budget year due to the constraints of what's happened with the pandemic. They said that we certainly could submit an application, however, that this wasn't truly the best fit. They were looking at expenditures of a much greater amount than $50,000, but certainly said we were welcome to apply. The interest rate, they won't have it locked in until in June, so they weren't able to tell us what that fee would be and what the additional cost would be. It's all going to be based on a pool of how many people apply, how much money is requested, so we wouldn't be able to tell you that until way after this meeting, what that cost would be from that program. So those were the financing portions, and please do let me apologize for not having advertising in the staff report. We have passed the time of turning in reports and getting that information to you. We have been in discussions with the city of going back and forth regarding advertising, and so I have added the advertising information in for you for the presentation. We also have recreation staff here that has been working with me. Macy Trueblood and Eric Story has been helpful and been on the project to discuss advertising challenges. So per the code, initially we had thought at our last meeting that we would be able to do off-site advertising, sell, make money from that. Unfortunately, after going back through the code in a further amount, we will not be able to do that. We had a discussion with the city, and it's fairly clear. This is the definition of what off-site advertisement is, and essentially the only constraints, the refinements that we're going to have to go with is if we have a community partner that sponsors one of our programs, we can include their name. We can include that they do partner with us and they have done that program or a general program. But we cannot go and list on our site, go and visit this company, we can't go into that detail because that is considered off-site advertising. So essentially, the only way that we're going to be able to include any other companies is to have them fold them into our community partnership deck, which is what Caitlin Sember and Macy Trueblood, they work with. And if we get a development analyst, they would also promote as well. Have through that partnership sponsorship deck as an inclusion that their company name would be included. So to give that example of the community partnerships, currently our community partnerships team, they try to secure partners 6 months in advance of any district program or event. They want to definitely give time for our sponsors to have advertise the event and mention our community partners. Here's just a snippet of what is included in our partnership deck. So marketing material may include inclusion on activity guide, event ad, posters, flyers, banners, PVRPD website, social media post, Facebook event, any external media advertising, etc. Now I have in red, and I have that highlighted, the etc. is because the etc. is where we will include the marquee. One of the things I clarified with Macy and Eric is that let's say that we have an event that doesn't have a sponsor of the highest level. Let's say it's 3 levels down. Would we still include them? If there's no other mentions, then yes, we would include them. So we're not going to go and have it included at a specific level and say you only get mentioned if you donate $1,000. It would be based on where does the company fall within the volume of levels of sponsorship that we get.
So can I just ask a question before you go on?
Yes, sir.
To clarify that? So obviously, if we have our community service groups, so if one of our community service groups is doing registration or something, we can put that up there. That's not a problem, I'm assuming, correct?
If
That's
it
pretty-
is, for a program, yes, that goes on at our sites, then
Yes.
yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Right. And, okay, and now, going back to your last slide, I'm thinking of the Christmas parade. We do the Christmas parade or something, and we have a bunch of sponsorships. We have an organization, a company that provides donuts for a run and all that. Can we mention them? Is that what you're saying, if I understand this correctly? It's okay to mention those in association with the Christmas parade as sponsors or something?
Correct.
Okay, so that part's okay.
Yes.
But if a dentist wants to put a sign up there or his name or something, we can't do that. Now, if the dentist was actually sponsoring the Christmas parade, we could mention the dentist's name or outfit or company or
Correct.
Optimist or whoever it was. Okay, but not if it's just as a standalone ad. I'm just trying to make sure I understand where the dividing lines are.
Correct.
Is that correct?
So if Dr. Dixon came to us and just walked up and said, I want to go and put an ad for my surgery practice, here's our logo, here's my number, and I just want to pay you to advertise that, we could not do that. But if he said, okay, I want to go and sponsor the Christmas parade, we could go and mention his practice for being a sponsor of the
Okay,
Christmas
okay,
parade.
I'm just trying to understand. Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question on that too? In the list of things you said that they might be mentioned in the activity guide and the website and the social media, is there some sort of, when somebody goes to sponsor something, is there a specific sponsorship amount, which means that you'll be mentioned here, here, and not there, and that sort of thing? Is that,
Yes,
okay.
that's on my next slide.
Okay.
Yep. Yes, so, and I would say if, Macy, if you want to come up and I'm going to refer, since this is under Macy, she can give you more detail about our sponsorship packages and how that would go. Under.
I have a question first.
Okay, go right ahead.
Could you put the ordinance back on the screen?
Can you see it?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm just reading it. Okay, it looks to me like it's to prevent the selling of things, but I don't know if it would prevent, for instance, the name of a business from being advertised where you're not trying to sell anything. That's number one. And number two, if this means that much to us, which it might, we could ask the city to give us a variance that would allow us maybe not to sell widgets or whatever, but to have a little more laxity in what we put on the screen. That's all I have.
Okay. Macy?
Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. So I don't know if you guys have any specific questions towards the packages, but our community partnerships team does have this sponsorship deck. So for any event or program that we might put on, whether it's movies, senior movie lunch, or our Camarillo Christmas parade, we would go out and try and recruit partnerships to help fund these programs. So let's say we have a title sponsor at $4,000, it includes all of these benefits: VIP parking, site activation, exclusive title partner. The one thing it's on a different page, but it says you may not get all of these benefits depending on the time frame that they become a partner. So obviously we try and secure partners 6 months in advance, but if we have someone coming in 2 months before the program and we've already put our activity guide out, obviously we can't put an ad in the activity guide after it's already been printed. So that's kind of a background on our partnerships deck. Did you guys have any specific questions on this?
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, my question would be, like, we have our senior lunches once a month, and it's my understanding that we usually get some organization here, food servicer guy, to provide the meals or whatever. Now that they're providing an actual product, not an actual, would you make the conversion to a cost or something in that example? Or,
Yeah.
I mean, because we can do that, and we can still put them on a sign saying, so we have senior meals this Friday, sponsored by blah, 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 and that's okay, correct? I mean,
Right.
if we wanted to do that.
And our request would be, we would hope that you would leave that up to the discretion of staff.
Right.
Of, they're providing $800 worth of meals, whether it's not, it's not monetary, but it's an in-kind sponsorship. We still want
Right.
to recognize them as a partner of the
No, I'm all in favor of that. I just want to make sure we're not, okay.
Right.
Yeah. Is this on our website?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And you have two different columns there, spotlight events and classic events. I mean, I can assume the parade is a spotlight event. And could you just briefly tell us what other spotlight events there might be?
Spotlight events would be like our larger events, so anything more than 1,000 participants coming to the event. So Easter extravaganza, Halloween in the park. Some of our classic event programs are going to be the smaller events. So senior movie lunches, they're more targeted programs.
Okay.
Spooky swim, some of those smaller ones are going to be in our classic events and programs.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mark?
I thought we were just going to talk about how we're going to pay for this thing. So this is great working, it's great marketing to work selling sponsorships into tonight's presentation. So as marketing director, kudos. Any chance to promote is a good chance. So I'm good with that. And I was actually a little worried that our staff would get a little aggressive on selling ads, and then we'd have to come up with a policy of what we can advertise or not. So the city's restriction that it has to be related to us is perfect, because that's the right way to use it, and the purpose is to sell the sponsorships. I mean, this is just part of the package, and the more things you have in there, some customers, one of those things will be a hot button for them. The other one, seeing their name in lights, is a hot button. So, it all adds to what we have to offer. So I think it's great. So.
Director Kelly, do you have a question?
I don't have any questions.
Okay, I do. Would you go back to that? I have a question. It's probably not related directly to this, but I do have a question. If the foundation, do we have to use that platform for costs now that that's in place, or can we come up with our own when we do a fundraiser?
We've come up, excuse me, we've come up with our own, what we've been trying to do, and this is once again, as moving forward or with the development analyst position, would be to try and coordinate some of these things.
Okay.
So this is kind of an overall. This doesn't mean we can't go back and relook at it. It doesn't mean for the Christmas parade we don't do something very specific. This is actually probably a very good starting point. And Eric, if you wanted to speak more to this, feel free. But I think this is kind of the starting point, so everybody's on the same page. So what doesn't happen is I'm having a conversation with somebody, Caitlin's having another conversation, and then all of a sudden we've got 16 different things going and don't know. So it's more for consistency as we're trying to build this.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
So for the fiscal impact, as you can see, so the minimum, if we did a financing option, the minimum we would be paying out additional would be $1,691.27 with a maximum of $5,617.96. I know that, so we looked into what our current capital funding status is as of April 16th, which it has changed since then, but as of April 16th, the district's capital funding stood at $2,573,090 and a year-to-date remaining balance of $177,795. That $50,000 was included in that expectation of 177 number. So if, and I put in there, if we did the financing from TCF and we did that straight out, it would be 135, 167, 73, and then from GCC, 133, 332, 87. So it's recommendation of guidance from the board of how you would like to move forward in the procurement of the signage, and so that's it.
I have a question before I'm going to let them have the floor.
Yes, ma'am.
How long is the price from the companies good for?
90 days.
Okay. 90 days from now or 90 days when we originally got it?
From when they, now, well, let me clarify, which companies?
Well, the two company, not
The
the
quote?
financing, the actual people we're purchasing from.
Okay.
I mean, if we say, okay, we want to wait for 6 months, is that still going to be the base price?
Basically, they said yes. Their technical answer is 90 days. But they said that being that we are dealing with a cooperative purchasing agreement, that they would honor those prices because they understand the current circumstances. So when I asked, they said that the technical answer is 90 days, but they did not expect the number to change if we waited.
Mike?
No, I mean, I think everybody here knows that I'm very happy and excited and would love to move forward with this. If it wasn't for the virus impact, we would be in implementation stages or whatever. But again, I'm concerned about our budget and upcoming money issues, and we have some meetings coming up. So I'm not too excited right now to pull the trigger until we have a better handle what's going on with our upcoming budget. But
Well, once again, I'm the opposite of Mike. I was real worried about this last month because we hadn't had our property tax payment in, and I was very concerned that a lot of people were going to not pay their property taxes. For those of you watching outside, the district's 80% of our revenue comes twice a year in the form of Santa Claus with our property tax check. And it's real easy for Santa's December check to carry us to April. It's very hard for the April check to carry us to December. So if we would have had a significant shortfall in the check that we just got, that would cause some real tightening of expenditures. But that didn't happen. In fact, our check was bigger than last year. And I'm sure there's some people didn't pay, so the amount of money that'll be trickling in as people pay late in the months ahead will be bigger than it was before. In fact, Leo confirmed this for me, and that is going to be the case. So I'm pretty comfortable that we have the money to do this, and I can see that it pretty much it's going to help us generate a revenue along the way, and the difference in financing it versus what we're earning on the money sitting in a bank account, it makes more sense to me for this amount of money. If we're talking $250,000, it'd be a different conversation. But at this amount of money, I'm very comfortable just spending the money and buying it outright. So.
Leo?
Yeah, one question before I have comment is on the TCF financing options, there's the 3-year and the 5-year payments. Is there, on the 5-year, is there a prepayment penalty on either one of those?
No.
So if we were to go to financing and we chose the 5-year one and we decided later we wanted to pay it off in 3 years, since the interest rate is the same, we could pay it off anytime we want?
Yes.
Okay. So I agree with Director Malloy that this amount of money, I think we should move forward with this. That it does have the potential to directly or indirectly generate some revenue and partially pay for itself. Whether we finance it or not, I don't have a strong feeling at $40,000. I think we could probably pay for it outright. But if we did want to finance it, I would certainly say that we would go with the 5-year option and choose to pay it off early if we want to, and not if we don't want to. So,
Director Kelly?
I agree with Director Malloy.
Okay. He's going to go with Director Malloy. And I'm going to go with Director Malloy. I just think we should move forward and get it done. I drove by there yesterday and just kind of cringed, and I went, oh. So I think we need to, and I think, like Director Malloy said, I've talked to Mary. She's tired of me asking about money, so I feel very comfortable with us having the money to move forward and things. So can I get a motion of some type?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to move forward with purchasing and implementing the new marquee here at the community center using cash out of our capital budget.
Second.
Karen, please.
Director Mishler,
Yes?
Director Dixon,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Malloy,
Aye.
Chair Magner.
Aye. Okay, Jessica, you have some work to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to ask you another question. Timeline. June 1st?
That would be nice.
So the next steps, I'm sorry, Jessica, I'm going to step in. So the next steps is it'll, being that it's a sign, it'll go before the Planning Commission.
That's what I
So it'll go before the Planning Commission. We've actually worked with Joe Vaca on this, so they'll get that at the June, I think, 2nd meeting. So once that's approved, and we've already preliminary talked to him about what the sign looks like and that kind of stuff. So I don't see any major issues at this point. So hopefully by July. And I'm just going to throw something in here. I think the other nice thing, so approving this project as we go through COVID and messaging, this will help us as things are opening, closing, and being able to get information out a little bit quicker, opposed to having our staff walk out, change a message, 3 days later change another message. So I'm hoping this will help as well. So.
Perfect. I'm glad you brought that up, because that was a conversation that you and I had, so I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, we will move on to 8 informational items. I'm going to wrap my first 2 together, my comments and my CSDA and my VCSDA comments together. I've been busy where I'm learning new technology, Zoom and everything else, and figured out I have to do my hair in the morning before 8 o'clock. And, retired people don't like doing that thing. So let me start off with CSDA has their legislative days coming up, and this year, due to COVID-19, it's going to be virtual, which I think is going to be a real experience for all of us. I'm kind of looking forward to it, but it'll be on May 19th and 20th. We still really don't know, other than for 1 3-hour period, exactly what's going to be happening. But we do know that the guest speakers will be the Secretary of State, Alex Padilla, and the California Secretary of Natural Resources, Wade Crowfoot, regarding hot topics affecting government finances, local services, and infrastructure. So CSDA is so creative when it comes to getting speakers. We had Mr. Nava from the Hoover Commission on 2 occasions, and they're just spot on with getting the appropriate speakers at the time that we need to be hearing about this. And these 2 individuals will definitely fill that spot. Also, we used to, when we would actually travel up there, we would have the opportunity to meet with our local legislative people, and we're not going to be able to have that. I think one of our representatives is probably tired of hearing from me, but I encourage all of you to keep in contact with our legislative people. We really need for them to hear us. One of the individuals that we really need to educate, I believe, is the county supervisors. County Supervisor Long, in her briefings as the chair of the county supervisors, always mentions the counties and the cities in our county. She never once mentions the special districts. And we have many special districts in this county. And I really believe I'm going to get a hold of the Ventura County president of the chapter, Ventura chapter, and I'm going to ask him if we can't do something to invite the county supervisors for the respective areas to the districts, and so that they can explain what a special district is. And I'm going to get to something here that you're going to find out why I think this is so important. And I'm going to get a hold of our CSDA field coordinator, Charlotte Hollifield, who you guys will meet at our next meeting, to arrange to get on the supervisor's agenda at one of their future meetings, because I believe they have a new supervisor coming on to take Steve Bennett's spot, and they just need to be educated in what is in the county. And I am so afraid that we as a special district and other special districts in this county and the state are going to be left out in the cold when this money comes rolling down. So, but I do have good news from CSDA. CSDA is working with the National Coalition of Special Districts. That's special districts from Florida, Colorado, Utah, and Oregon. And they have already, our staff have already taken these steps, and they have met with Congressman Garamendi and to develop a draft federal legislation encompassing key COVID-19 relief priorities. After receiving numerous, I'm going to read something here to you. After receiving numerous letters from CSDA members confronting the pandemic, Congressman Garamendi coordinated a virtual meeting on April 23rd for CSDA to brief over 12 offices from California's congressional delegation on special district federal COVID-19 hardships and needs. And he is now partnering with CSDA and other stakeholders to address special district priorities. So I think we have made a big step, and I think we have a big thanks to CSDA for making this move. I'm on the executive board of CSDA, and we did not approve for Neil to do this at the strategic planning last fall. And he came out and he asked the executive board a few weeks ago what we thought, and we all said, go for it. We didn't realize that this pandemic was going to happen. And we weren't ready to make this move with the coalition, but I think the timing is good. And we've got a congressman listening to us. We have 3 board members in the Valley who have met with their congressional leaders also over there. So we're just getting a real big push from California to see if we can get more money in the next relief bills. So, or at least for us to be mentioned somehow. And that's why I'm saying that we need to Supervisor Long is on CSAC, which is the county's counterpart to special districts in Sacramento, and I think it would be so important for her to know how important these special districts are, and that she would take a step to at least bring them to the forefront and acknowledge them. So. Now that I've been on my soapbox, I just hope that we can do something like that. And I will keep you posted. The legislative meeting a week ago Friday was 57 pages. I lasted 2.5 hours. they weren't even to page 36, so I said, I'm done with you guys. It just goes on. There's 300 spot bills that could end up anywhere attached to any other bill, and it's really scary out there, guys. So kind of keep your eyes on. Mary has been very proactive in sending in letters of support, especially with the funding and everything. So thank you, Mary. We really appreciate that. So, okay, enough for soapbox. Oh, Ventura County Special Districts meeting will be, I guess, virtual also. I don't know if it'll be Zoom or if it's going to be what it's going to be. But we're not going to be in person, so kind of waiting to get the word on how we're going to do the special district county chapter meetings. So,
Well, Elaine, you'll be our primary representative, of course,
Yes,
for voting.
yes.
But who'll be the alternate?
I'm sorry?
Who'll be our alternate?
I don't know. That'll be up to Mary to decide. Or she and I will talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
No, they asked for an alternate along with the primary.
yeah, okay.
That's what I'm
okay.
saying.
Yeah, she and I will discuss it. Okay. Mike, Ventura County Consolidated Oversight Board?
No meetings
Okay.
and nothing planned right now. We don't know when we're going to meet.
Okay. Santa Monica Mountain Conservancy?
No meetings, but there's been a lot of emails back and forth. One of the biggest everybody has problems with the funding and all the virus stuff impacts. And for the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, they receive a lot of money from the state to purchase properties and do big capital projects and stuff. They don't receive a single dime for operational aspects. So, and that's 30% of their budget is operations, maintaining and operating their existing facilities. And all that money comes from the fees that people pay when they have a wedding or want to use one of their facilities, or the movie studios want to do a shoot or something. They have to pay fees and parking fees and all that stuff. Well, that's where that 30% of their budget comes from, are all those public fees. But obviously everything is completely shut down. So all that money that goes to operational expenses has dried up. It's down to zero. So they obviously have some issues. They still don't know how they're going to address all this stuff. But that's one of the upcoming big problems they're going to have.
Jim doesn't want to volunteer. Okay, thank you, Mike. Okay, standing committees, finance. You had good news, so you have more good news?
Yeah, we had good news. Well, there's good news and there's bad news. The refunds on canceled events and programs is up to $57,000. So, there's some substantial loss of income there, but of course there's less expenses too, because we don't have people operating or doing those events. So there's something slightly there. And I see the staff working on a lot of fix it, rebuild it projects, because the amount of activities are lower, so we have more time to do stuff. And the restrooms at the administration building look terrific. That's really coming out nice. So a lot of good things there. We're tracking right. We're tracking right on budget on expenses. Water, we're well below, but of course now we catch up big time because we're pouring the water to things now. So now that it's hot. So, but overall, all our expense categories look like we're comfortable under budget, and we're going to be over our estimates on revenue. I sat through an hour-and-a-half presentation that CalPERS made. And I copied some of their slides. I made a little presentation, which they'll queue up for me. And I'm gonna go over it with you. And I can email you, or the staff can email you that link there, so you can actually sit through and listen to the hour-and-a-half conversation if you want. But basically, because one of the negative side effects of this COVID-19 is a dramatic reduction in asset values. And that has a big impact when you have a portfolio of $355 billion worth of assets. So in this hour-and-a-half seminar, they sort of was an update for all of us of what's going on with the CalPERS investment fund. So the first thing was they talked about the three key priorities, and led off by CEO Marcy Frost. And one of the most stunning things that I heard come out of her mouth was that they're not really expecting to reach the 7% investment target. It's just like we're trying to do the best we can. And, I heard those words and I just felt the color drain out of my face, because they're committed to do this and the economics of the system depend on it, but they're admitting that essentially they can't. And the other really unfortunate comment she made is that, in all these years, CalPERS has always been cash flow positive. There's more money coming in than going out. That has flipped, and there's now $5 billion in negative cash flow this year. So somebody's got to pay for all that, and of course that somebody is us and our employees. And the way they do this, and they made a very clear description of how this works, is by each year, at the end of the year, and I'll show you the actual timeline, they calculate how much is not available, and they essentially send us a bill for 20 years. And that shortfall isn't CalPERS' problem, it's our problem. And we get a fresh dose of that problem each year. The other thing I noticed, that even though they had on the slide climate risk, there was absolutely no mention of any of that sort of stuff. So these environmental, social, governance sort of concepts in their investing strategy, that was completely abandoned. Now they're clearly focused on getting the returns, as they should be. So here's their picture as of the end of the month, end of March. And up to, from July 1st, 2019, up to March 31st, their portfolio hadn't done 7%. In fact, it was at negative 4%. The first half of the year, they'd done 6% gains, but after the market corrections that had happened, they were down at negative 4%. And as you see on the right, there's a sort of the weighting of all the different types of things that they invest in. And the private asset classes, that is, not the things that you can turn on the TV and get the value of, those things are shown at evaluations from months ago. Those are likely lower as well. So clearly they're worried they have a problem this year, and here's the first of it. Now, this slide right here actually shows the timeline of how we get to pay back that loss. And the green arrow shows where we are today in the timeline, on our way to that second blue dot, which is June 30th, the end of the fiscal year. And in July, they announce, okay, here's what we did for the past year, and here's how we were over, or here's how we're short. Last year was a pretty good investment year, and they ended up 0.4% short. They actually had a pretty good year, but they ended up short. This year, there's significant risk. And the interesting thing in this chart is they show that they're going to loan us that money that they didn't earn, but they're handing us loan papers. We didn't ask to borrow the money, but they're handing it to us. We owe it. And they're going to give us 20 years to pay off. And you can see the ramp goes up the first 5 years, and then it flatlines the last 15. Now, where the red line is there, the public agencies don't start paying for 2 years. So imagine if you bought a house and they said, go on in, move in, enjoy the home, no payments for 2 years. And then we'll scale your payments up for the next 5 years. And then you'll reach, your regular payment for the next 15. Boy, that would sure make home ownership a lot cheaper to get in, but way more expensive over time, because you'd be losing equity on your home those first 5 years. Those first 5 years are negative amortization on the loan. So, and in this little chart here, it shows the payments over the 5 years roughly double in size, right? I mean, it's a ramp, but it's not horrible. But the next slide, they gave an actual example of what would happen if we had a 2% return. There's a sample employer, And in the case of this sample employer, they have a market value of assets of $10 million. PVRPD's market assets are $15 million. So you can kind of do the math as you go by. But if you look down, if you had an investment earnings of 2% instead of 7%, you'd been short 5%. So the loan amount is $500,000. But you don't have to start paying until 2022, 2023, and it's $12,500 a year. Of course, with the district half again more, that'd be closer to $20,000. But look how it scales up year to year. And in the 5th year, it jumps up 5 times to $62,580. And then you got to pay that for 15 more times, 15 more years. And that's just for this year's losses. Each year there's a loss, we get a new set of loan and a new set of payments to make. So basically, the system has transferred the responsibility for them not earning what's needed to the agencies. And the reason they've done that is a look at history here shows that they haven't figured out any other way to do it, because the funded status of the Public Employees Retirement Fund, the PERF, back in 2009 was 70%. And if you look here this year, if they do 7%, we're going to make it all the way to 72%. So here you had a decade of record investment returns, and they've gained, if we do well this year, only 2%. Now look at the chart on the right there. If they had a negative 10% return, our funding status will drop over 10% to 60.6%. Big numbers. So the final slide, which I thought was great because they continued to hand off responsibility to this to somebody else, because they reminded us that all CalPERS does is hand out the money, collect the money and hand out the money. The amount of benefits, the target investment returns, all that is set by legislature and union contracts and things outside of CalPERS' hands. They don't have any control of any of that. They just essentially run the system. And they closed with a very nice, well, if you can't make your payments, give us a call and we'll see how we can work it out. I mean, so this is the system that's been put in place, and it's going to continue to affect us. Every year they can't make 7%. These things are going to start getting layered on, and in a 20-year stretch, we could easily have 8 to 12 of these layered on top of our regular payments. So it's going to be extremely limiting in the financial future of the district. And that's all I have. Any questions? Donations? Contributions?
Mark, it's you and I spending all this time watching all this stuff, and there's just nothing positive come out of it. It's just all...
Well, it's been going on. I mean, I've been on this horse for years and years and years. It's been going on. Nobody's talking about it. But all of a sudden, the numbers are jumping up again. So more and more people are talking about it.
Yeah.
And, in my opinion, the market's reacted pretty positively considering the whiplash of economic impacts we've sustained in the last 2 months. It's actually doing pretty well. But if it doesn't, these numbers are going to gallop. I mean, that chart shows that if they did 2% this year, we'd have an extra $750,000 the district would owe CalPERS, just based on what happened in this 1 year. That's a really staggering amount of money for a $9 million agency to absorb.
The only thing I would say is not really good news, but to kind of blend that, kind of defer that tiny bit, I was telling Mark before, the state of California obviously has all their employees in the same bucket there with us, and many of the cities and stuff. Well, those guys are going to be, we're hurting, but those guys are going to be in a lot more pain than we are, sooner than we are. I mean, the pain's going to hit them much harder than it is going to hit us. So we're going to be hit, but so my only hope is that eventually the state and the cities forcing the state will eventually, because they're going to crack before we will. And hopefully we'll get some help along the way before we have to crack or something. That's all.
Well, I remember the first CalPERS state conference I went to, I think it was in 2010, and at that time they were even talking about not meeting the investments in those days, and and it hasn't gotten any better. They haven't moved forward to do anything about it, so. Okay, long-range planning. Oh, wait, liaison. Did you guys have a liaison meeting?
No, liaison's not meeting.
No? Okay. Long-range planning?
Well, we did meet with this.
The day after.
It was the day after, Neil. We did meet with the city, remember?
Yeah, I thought we already talked about it at the last meeting, didn't we? Was that?
Day after.
Oh, okay, okay, all right.
You want to?
Well, basically, we at that meeting, we decided that in light of what's going on here, that we couldn't move forward with pretty much anything. We put everything on hold, and I think our plan is to just wait and see how this evolves and decide whether to reconvene and where we go as things become a little clearer down the line.
Personnel, you saw it in one of the items that we dealt with. Policy, Neil and I are working, we're back to meeting monthly, and we made a lot of progress, I believe, on this time. I felt really good about us coming out of that meeting. How about you?
Yeah, I think we are probably ahead of our own imposed date to get this done. So
Yeah.
we're working on
Okay.
tournament use policy. So
Okay. Ad hoc committees, Miracle League?
That's next week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a meeting next week. Nexus study?
Yeah, that was last week. Yeah, the Nexus study is the part of the obligatory paperwork to the district being able to get developer fees for projects that are infill projects, essentially. And the way the system works now is an infill project doesn't generate developer fees, and the district doesn't see any revenue when these projects happen. And there's a number of them in the pipeline that are really significant in size. And when you bring significant amounts of population into the community without providing park facilities, it creates a problem for us. So the city is actually expressed interest in working with us on it, and this will be coming back on next month's agenda. So.
Foundation, we're like everybody else. We've kind of on hiatus right now with everything's going on. So we're not doing anything. Everything's on hold. So the general manager's report.
Okay, most of everything I have right now is probably related to COVID in some way, shape, or form. So just a reminder, right now, facilities that are open and closed, we've got that on the website. We also have that on the on Facebook. But just to go over it quickly, facilities that are open right now, parks are open. It's most of the amenities are closed. However, pickleball and tennis are open. The restrooms are open. They're just open limited. So all the neighborhood bathrooms, restrooms are now open. We're cleaning those 3 times a day to help keep up with some of the cleaning and cleanliness and sanitization. So I'm hoping this next week, we're supposed to hear something from the governor probably tomorrow on what this looks like reopening. We are right now working on and listening to, I think every day I'm at least on 2 various calls or teleconferences or webinars looking at steps to reopening. So staff right now are working on what that would look like and what things we will need to do if, say, the governor and Ventura County says, hey, we can start opening on May 15th or whatever that looks like. So we're starting to assess what supplies we have, what sanitation plans we'll have to do, working on coordination with physical distancing, staffing capacities, so working on all of those kinds of things, as well as working and jumping on conference calls with different agencies to see how they're doing it, to see if there's things that we can kind of partner on or kind of glean. So that's been a lot of the stuff that I've been working on, as well as staff. They're trying to work on and look at if the governor or Ventura County says, hey, we can have groups of 10, what would that look like? If we can have groups of 25, what does that look like? So we're starting to kind of work on those plans to see what that would look like, depending on what comes out. So we're ready to go if and when that happens. I think Chair Magner talked about some of the legislation. So there's workers' comp legislation that just came through that she's got information on. So that's new legislation that has come through as it relates to COVID. So those are things that we are currently working on now. Just one quick, I'm going to pop up the screen. So before Megan left, she was working with AT&T, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jessica, regarding potential cell tower at Pitts Ranch. So right now we're working with AT&T, we're working with the city as we're going back and forth, trying to figure out location, what they'll allow, what they won't. Obviously, we're trying to get this passed through, being that we would like a little extra income coming in. That's always good for us. So what they're doing, this is kind of one of the examples that they sent. So it would be, if you're looking at this example, it'd be back toward the tennis courts, or basketball courts back in that corner. And then here's some samples, whether it's a water tower, what that looks like. So we're still going back and forth with AT&T, working with the city to figure out what that will look like. So I think this is, correct me if I'm wrong, Jessica, 70 feet high. So
How many feet? I didn't hear that number.
70 feet high.
70?
Yeah, so that's part of the requirement AT&T is working on. So once again, they'll still have to send all these plans to get the okay. Once we kind of have a better idea from the city, it'll come back to the board as we're looking at this to see what this looks like. So
Couldn't you almost put up a fake light? Like our sport lights, we have obviously for our sports parks and complexes, we have those tall lights. Couldn't we just put up a fake one that never turns on?
So this is part of the discussion. So the first thing when Megan was working on it, it was a fake tree. Came back, city didn't like the tree, so then we were trying to look at something else. So literally this is going to be going back and forth to try and figure out what's acceptable, what kind of fits in the neighborhood, and all of that and what that looks like. So,
But you know what I'm talking about, like at Mission Oaks Park, we have those tall lights. I'm just trying to explain to the public.
And we have it also at Bob Kildee.
Yes, yes.
So what they're trying to do, though, is make sure it fits in. So like if we had sports lighting here, that would be a no-brainer. We'd put a sports light up. But there's no sports light here, so they're trying to figure out what kind of fits into that community and what looks good so it doesn't look like an eyesore. So this is part of going back and forth with the design elements and stuff that are coming back and forth. So we'll continue to work with AT&T, the city, and then bring stuff back as we're moving forward with this. So once again, just trying to find other ways that potentially finding some other revenue sources. So just wanted to give board an update on that specific information. And I think that's all I have for today.
You haven't read this on the unemployment, so I won't give it to you to report on. So I haven't read it either. So
I haven't read the full information. I know that Catherine and this is just kind of the breadth of stuff that staff has been looking at. So Eric's staff has been sitting on calls looking at anything from recreation programming to childcare to the numbers that we can have. So how that would affect camp, how many kids that we could potentially have, how many staff the ratio are going to need to be, what the cleaning requirements will be. So his staff have been focusing on that. Catherine and Leo the other day said on a 2.5-hour webinar regarding unemployment, what that potentially looks like, how that could affect us bottom line. So, and then I know that we've got the workers' comp that potentially is an issue. So literally, I think every day somebody's on some different webinar to figure out how all of this stuff will join and what that looks like from the district standpoint.
Yeah, well, the one on workers' comp is going to be backdated to March 19th, and which is really kind of a, yeah, and it's an executive order, so it's in place.
Okay.
So, but I'll give this to you, what I have, and then I'm sure you'll talk with our legal people and see what the impact's going to be, so.
May I ask a question, Mary?
Yeah.
Mary, did you ever provide any feedback to the proposed farmhouse development on the edge of the city?
Not yet. That's on my list for.
Okay, okay.
But yes.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Neil.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. Well, one comment. We did not have district highlights today, although I know there are probably not a lot of highlights to be shown, but I did miss that. We do have some things going on, and so if there's some way we could continue to do that, I'd appreciate that. The other thing is I'd like to know where we are in terms of our recreation staff, what's happened with the closure of most of our recreational programs. Where are we standing with recreational staff?
So right now, recreational staff are currently, and we'll go over more of this on budget on Saturday, but just to kind of give everybody a quick update. So we still have, from a staffing standpoint, we still have most of the recreation staff at home still working on various projects. So like we came to policy committee, there's 3 different recreation staff working on policy issues. We've got staff right now working on, if we open, what does this look like? So even though we're not doing programming right now, we're still trying to analyze, if we reopen on May 15th, we need to be ready to go. So we're still working on those kinds of things. So those staff are still working from home. We're still doing teleconferencing twice a week. Well, from staff meetings twice a week with all the recreation staff, all the admin staff, and then the kind of key, crew leads and supervisors to make sure everybody knows what's closed, what's open, if there's any new protocol that needs to be in place and all of those things. So that's where staff is at right now. We're trying to figure out what the next step is for May 15th, whether they're going to extend this, whether we're going to be able to open more stuff up, or if it's going to remain closed, then we'll have to reassess what that looks like once we get more orders from there.
We've not had to cut back hours or lay anybody off or anything like that?
So right now, what we have done from a staffing standpoint is we don't have any part-time with the exception of rangers working. Let me rephrase that. Part-time staff right now are our rangers, and then since we lost our mechanic, our full-time mechanic, we have a mechanic, a part-time that has actually been working to make sure all of our equipment is up. Otherwise, all our rec staff, we have no part-time, no part-time working, and we did that when we closed on March 20th, knowing that one of the things we wanted to make sure is that we were cognizant of that. We have not filled any positions that are open. So like I said, we have a mechanic. We have not filled that position. We're using the part-time right now. We have an open right now position in grounds 2. Correct me if I'm wrong, Catherine. So right now, we're not recruiting for that one. And we are not recruiting right now for Megan's position, being that just to make sure we know what's going to happen, where we're at budget-wise before we start to fill vacant positions right now.
Anybody else have any questions? Do you want to give us an update on how Saturday's happening?
So Saturday we have our budget workshop. Reminder goes from 8 until 2. So if we need longer, obviously, if we need less time, but we have it from 8 until 2. It will be at the senior center. So Director Kelly, once again, will be calling in. But everybody else will be at the senior center. We'll do kind of like we've done it's a little bit different than in the past. So we will start the first portion of it, or at least the first portion of it will be kind of where we're at today financially, what's happening today. And then we'll kind of start looking, just like we have in the past, start looking at next year's budget. Everybody, I believe, has a copy of the budget. So we'll start with kind of the overall, then go into admin, recreation, parks, capital, Quimby, and then obviously anything else that we need to look at. And then we have a follow-up on May 14th. So if we need to come back with information, we'll come back on May 14th. And if we need to do more, then we can look at that as well. Once again, starts at 8 and then goes until 2 p.m. So the senior center, the main door will be open so everybody can come through that door.
Okay, all right. Oral communications, do you have anything, Director Kelly? I'll start with you.
I don't have anything.
Okay. Director Malloy?
Yeah, I just had 3 meetings last month, the regular meeting, the finance meeting, and the Nexus meeting. A member of my family who accused me of covering our basketball hoops because of my weak jump shot is anxious for us to get our basketball courts opened so he can school me once again. But I assume that's probably one of the last things, because the reason we had to cover them is because multiple people were playing close together. And that's not likely. Activities that involve close involvement of other people are not likely to be approved with this opening on the weekend. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's kind of what I'm hearing right now. We haven't heard anything with numbers, but anything that's contact or large groups or close contact has not been discussed at this point.
Yeah, okay. That's all I have.
Mike?
I just want to thank the staff for working through all the issues and problems that we have now in our current environment. I want to thank the public for, from everything, I visit the parks just about every day, different parks and stuff, and they're doing a great job from what I can see in behaving and doing the right thing. I'm happy we're getting our restrooms back open. I think that's important for not only the public, the general public using our facilities, but also all the service people and stuff. Like as Mark Malloy has mentioned, all the people across who have to service the community and stuff, and stop and have lunch and do some stuff. So I think that's great. We're making headway, and obviously, I'm assuming all of us, as much as possible, I like to move forward and open up, and I'm sure we're on the same wavelength in terms of trying to open up as much as we can, as fast as we can, and do it safely and everything. Thank you very much.
Director Dixon?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment a little bit on my thoughts a little bit on the COVID situation again. I don't envy policymakers on the decision of when do we reopen the economy and when do we return to business to some degree of business as usual, or the new normal as they call it. There's a lot of noise out there about the escalation of infections and potential deaths associated with that occurring, and I don't know that those are a lot of speculations. I don't know that we really know what the answers to those are. But one of the things that I think is probably not talked about is the counterbalance to not reopening the economy and letting people out of their isolation is the health effects of the isolation. There are significant health effects in terms of, especially in mental health, suicide, spousal abuse, drug abuse, alcoholism. A lot of issues that are being aggravated by the issues of isolation, and that I think that has to be in the discussion when we talk about when do we loosen up on letting people start venturing out of their seclusion. And so again, I don't have the answers to that, but I think that's a subject that is not really taken into account. There are absolute increases in infections and deaths that will be related to reopening the economy, but there are some other benefits too. Also, the emotional and physical side effects of the people losing their businesses, losing their jobs, their finances destroyed. Those are all important considerations in this whole thing too. So that's my only comment on that. Thanks.
All right. I think I've talked enough, so we will adjourn until Saturday morning. Thank you, everyone.
Good night. night, everyone.
Hi, Bob.
Take care, Bob.